Hey, no time like the present. Welcome to Brisbane Small Business Show. I have Peter Ellis with me, Dr. Peter Ellis even. So, Peter, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Okay, very briefly, I've always been concerned. I was brought up in a family business. I've always noticed with other people around me that some really intelligent people were going out of business, and some people who didn't know anything about anything were doing very, very well, and I couldn't understand why. And so I've spent my life trying to discover that, in essence.
And that's one of the most frustrating things of life, isn't it? We see people that we can imagine not to be overly intelligent and go, how come they're doing so awesome? And and I'm super smart and I'm struggling, and we all from time to time in different areas of life get that. Absolutely. Now, Peter, you've actually done a little bit of study on the growing pains of business, yeah?
That's right. Well, I've spent about 25 years actually working practically with businesses, helping them. But while I was doing that, I also got a master's degree in strategy and communication, a professional doctorate in business education, and I've just completed a PhD now in business development and growth, which has brought out some brand new understanding of the inside structure, organization, and way businesses are run to make it easier for people to understand the question that I've had all my life. I've now found the answer.
Now, look, here's where the challenge is going to kick in, and you're going to help me solve this. That so often people that get really highly educated and they go into academia, they forget about the real world, yeah?
Exactly. That's why I've right the way through been working practically with businesses.
And so you're going to help people not get stuck in that cycle, but actually through really practical means.
Absolutely, yes.
Cool. So, so why is it that some just seem to easily and effortlessly breeze in and get super successful, and other people seem to be working their butts off, doing everything, believing if you build it, they will come, but then they don't?
Oh, there are a number of reasons. In essence, in research, there's two schools. One is where people just want to look into the way businesses work, and they say, give me all the information of lots of businesses and I'll send it off. And that just gives you all the research data that people have seen and don't understand, and so on. The second school, which is where I come from, is where people actually look into the business, the structure, the organization. But where they've been going wrong is they've only been looking at mindset. Mindset's everything. It's not. It's part of it. They've been looking at what skills are necessary. They've been looking at what the structure, what the process and procedure. All these things are important. What I've done is I brought them all together and say, look, if you have these things together, you are going to be able to have a strong and successful and continuous sustainable business. But the thing is, yeah, and that's what it is. But the thing is that people seem to think they understand business, but they only understand different parts of it, and they're only shown, and they only by seeing the whole thing together as a big picture. Suddenly, it all becomes clear.
And to me, people love to oversimplify stuff, yeah? And they love to go, hey, you've got to understand your why, but your why won't help you at all if you don't get off your butt and do stuff, yeah? And right. And even then, you may have all the skill in the world in a particular facet, but if you don't have the strategy of how to implement and to parlay that, then you're not going to get there either. So it really is, you need that mixture and in the right order. And you've been doing with your research, you're saying you've got a new approach, and it actually helps people understand what stage they're in, so what they need to focus on to get to the next level, yeah?
Exactly. Just so you understand, in private enterprise, The vast majority, about 87%, are micro businesses, one person doing their thing, and they're happy and great. That only leaves about 13 to 15% who want to grow. That's all. Although that is still like, hundreds of thousands of companies, but it's only a very small or small number.
So can I just clarify? So the micros that you're talking about are the solopreneurs who aren't trying to move to a bigger platform.
They don't want to. They want to have a life,
and that's perfectly fine.
They all have different reasons for it, and it's not. They're not in there to grow. They're in there to have. They don't want to work for someone else, or they want whatever reason it is. But
even for them, sustainability is important, but yes, they don't necessarily need to go through growing pains.
Not through growing pains, but it would benefit them if they understood what the easiest and most complete mindset is, what skills they need. What I've actually done to make it easier is I've got a little plan here where you've got your technical knowledge, your management knowledge, and your personal abilities as the business grows.
And that little download, that little graph that you just held up, that's the one that you sent to me on Friday, yeah?
Yeah.
So we're going to have a download for everyone with that, and we'll put it into the commentary here a little bit later on.
Yeah, because that's only part of it. What that does is show that when you start, you've got to have the skills, but as you grow, you haven't got time to use the skills. There's only a certain amount of skills you've got. Management, you've got to build up at first, and then that levels off because you're managing managers. But your personal development continuously grows throughout, and that's very, very important.
And this is really, really critical, because when you think about it, the guy heading up BHP may not even know how to dig a hole, right? Let alone a mine.
Doesn't need to. Yeah.
Doesn't have to, because the technical engineering skills required for mining isn't what he needs to know anymore.
Exactly. But the person who only has a job digging holes has to be the best, really has to know what he's doing. So you don't have like one owner knows everything. What BHP does, that owner, is completely different from what a hole digging.
And that exact same scenario applies whether you're in BHP or whether you're an accountant and you're starting an accounting company and you want to build that into a business that's going to have 20 or 30 or 50 people or whatever number. The higher up you go, the less important the technical skills become, and the more important other skills are.
Well, you do need to have the technical skills if you're a doctor or a dentist or an accountant or a lawyer, whatever. But you're not spending your time so much working at the coalface. What you're doing is you're starting to be a manager. And essentially what you'll see when you have a look at this is that a micro business, a small business, is just a bigger micro business where you have to learn other skills. If you don't learn those other skills, you have problems, which I show. But a medium-sized business is a completely different animal. The reason they're bunched together is because they're all privately owned. That's the only thing they have in common. And the one thing I want to say essentially is this, that those 15% that grow, more than 50% of them are not small or medium, but are transitioning, and they don't even know they're transitioning. They think they're small, they think they're medium, but they're not. They're in between, and that's why they're having their problem. That's why they're confused, and that's what I can show them.
That's fantastic. So you've got a number of different phases of stages of business, yeah?
Yeah.
I think you told me about 8, or did I imagine that?
Yeah, seven. You're exaggerating.
It was about 8. It was about 8. 7's about. Fair enough. So I talked to a few people, so I get different things stuck, and sorry about that. So 7 different phases, 7 clear phases of business. So if we were to help people understand where they're at or what phase they're at or phases they're between, that would help them understand more about what they need to get through that transition. Yeah.
Absolutely. Once they know what phase they're in, they can do something about it. If they didn't know they were in a phase, they don't know they have to do anything.
Cool. So stage one or phase, the very first one, what's that at?
The first one is micro. Setting the
Yeah.
business up. You've got your passion, your focus, your attitude, and so on and so forth. The next ones are the growth. So the first new stage is deciding you want to grow and coming out of micro. And coming out of micro is where you basically build up more. You go to network places, you go to places to try and get more work. But once
so for you, a micro business was defined as what?
A micro business is where you have one person that is the income earner. Now, if it's a dentist and they've got a dentist and a hygienist and a nurse and a receptionist, you still only got the dentist, because without the dentist, no one's going to come to see the hygienist and no one's going to come and see the receptionist. So that's also a micro business.
And we won't take that. Yeah, absolutely. So, so it's a principal income earner is your definition.
Earner, yes.
Awesome. Then in the next phase,
if we use the dentist right the way through, it'll be easier. So the dentist. So first of all, he was a locum. As a locum, he was all by himself. He had no staff. Then he had his own place of work where he had the other people. Now he wants to become a small business. So first of all, he's getting more and more work and he can't cope. So he says, right, I'm going to get some more dentists.
Yep.
Now this is the moving into small business. If he just gets dentists and say, get on with it while I'm getting on with it, he'll be working 6 days a week. They'll be working 2 days a week, a couple of half days a week, doing whatever they want to do it. Going in there, they're not really earning the money for him. And he doesn't realize that it's not a question of having a dentist in there, it's having the room being paid for. That's what it's for. So once that happens, and he's got a few of them, he can then transition to a small. But most dentists, accountants, medical practices and so on, have extra doctors or accountants or whatever, just doing their thing. But there's no structure or organization. And that's what you need to put in before it becomes a small business. Once it becomes a small business, you can say, I'm happy, it's a small business, everything's doing its thing, I'm getting the income in I want, I've got the structure, I've got the admin and so on. But you might say, well, look, I actually want to grow, so I'm going to get a few more practices. So you're now coming out of a small business. You're still doing the small business stuff, but you're coming out of it because you're looking around, you're trying to find other practices. Then you move into it. Now, when you move into it, you've got to make sure that someone looks after all these departments. Someone looks after all the different. As you move there, you have less and less time to actually physically do any dentistry. You have to make sure that all the equipment for the dentist is there, that everything's working, that everything's going on. You've got to keep an eye on the cash flow. You've got to make sure that you can plan in advance so that there's always dentists there or locums on call or whatever. So it's planned and organized. You can't just sit in your office doing dentist work. You've actually got to manage it. And when you've got 3 or 4 practices and you've got an area that makes false teeth and amalgam and all that sort of thing, you've got no time to be a dentist. You're talking to your accountant, you're doing all sorts of other non-accounting things because you are now a full-time manager, and you've got managers within it. That's the basic structure. But why do some people do it and why don't some people do it is the big question. And there's 2 answers to that. The first answer is it's someone who's tried it a few times and failed, learns each time, and each time they start again, they've learned a bit more and they improve it. And the other one is someone who has an understanding of the requirements of an organization and puts them in place as they develop them. So I've worked with a company that's taken 2 or 3 years to reach to a middle-sized company, and one that took 25 years to reach to it, because they took longer for them to understand what was necessary. And for 25 years, they could have gone broke any day. Once they cracked it and they put everything in place, they could enjoy their business.
And that's something that somebody said to me years ago. Just because something's not working now doesn't mean it won't work ever. It could just be you need to tinker to understand you need to find the key to that next level. Right now, sometimes it's going to be, sometimes it will be mindset, other times it will be skills, and other times it will be the structure and things. But it depends on. But if you give up, then you're going to get stuck where you are.
That is true. One of the biggest issues that people have is what's called letting go, and there's a lot of research in letting go as a concept.
There's a whole movie about that.
In micromanagement, is there?
Yeah, called Frozen. Anyway, we won't talk about that. We won't sing the song. We all know the song. So we do. It's a real parable for life, as all Disney movies are. The fact is, the more we can let go of, hey, as the micro to get into the small, let go of, I'm the only one that can do this, so that you can allow others to do that too. Awesome.
Yes. You can still control it, but you mustn't actually be micro. The more you micromanage, the less you can grow.
Absolutely. No, this is really, really interesting stuff. So you've given us 3 different levels there, or did those 3 levels incorporate the 7 levels that you've got?
They're called the micro, small, and medium, and then you've got out of micro into small is 2, out of small into medium is 2, so that makes the 7.
Right. Okay. Now I get that. Because you've got your different phases. You've got your different phases of transition.
Yes.
Hey, I miss the stuff that everyone misses, which was the whole point of your research.
What was the point of my research?
To discover the missing links.
Those are the
there were 3 levels, but there wasn't. There was 7.
There were 7. The transition and the missing links. No one has ever researched that before. No one's looked into it. No one's even realized that there was such a thing. The technical terms for that have been around for decades, but no one's actually looked into it to see what it means and how it can be dealt with, and what the consequences of those activities are. And it's really, really important. But it's not. Yes, you've got to understand marketing, and you've got to do marketing. Yes, you've got to have the skills. Yes, you've got to do this, that, and the other. But the most important 3, the 3 most important things in business, if you want to grow, are this. 1, don't micromanage if you want to grow, because you won't grow. It'll basically hold you back. It'll be like a chain around your neck. Understand, learn about human relations management. Very, very important, because if you don't understand that, you can't grow, because you're stopping other people growing, and that'll make your business more difficult. The second one is planning. You've always got to plan. An idiot who plans is going to do much better than a genius who doesn't. And thirdly, you've got to look after your finance and understand your finance. Now, I say this with, excuse me, accountants, but your finance is more important than you realize it is. And I just say that it's not as important as accountants say it is, but it's much more important. Now, if you do it properly, and it's very simple to do it properly, I can show you 90% of people, 95% of people don't do this. But if you do it properly, you can make business decisions like that, because you can see exactly where you are, you can see exactly what you're spending, and you can make decisions in that way. That's how your accounts should be. Now, you don't have to actually physically do it. All you've got to do is be able to look at it and say, right, I can see that our gross profit percentage has gone down. That means I've got to put the price up a bit. I can see, and because I can see that's because the costs are going up. I can see I'm spending too much money in this area. Why is it? I haven't spent as much money as I used to in that area. Why is it? So by doing it in a certain way, you can ask simple questions. You can see, how are we doing? You can see, you can tell. Very, very simple.
And that's the importance of understanding this process as you're going through those different stages of growth, so that as you grow, a typical challenge for many businesses as they grow, their gross profit goes down because they're not focusing on, they're not as focused on the production costs as they once were.
Yeah, I mean, production can be working through accountancy customers or dental customers, as well as making a clothes or a box or something.
So the critical thing today is there's 7 different stages of growth. By identifying where you're at, the path to the next stage
simpler
can be identified, and anything that can be identified you can learn
and you can deal with, and you can
and so with that, so yeah, it's a constant evolution. Look, Peter, thanks very much for your time. We've got a link. I've just got to hunt down what that link is. I'll include that in the stream. I'll actually include it in the information that we put into this stream. I'll show Peter how we can have that as an evergreen. He can share into Brisbane Small Business on a regular basis, because I think this information is absolutely critical for all of us who do want to grow. Okay.
It's absolutely brand new. No one has ever anywhere in the world seen this, done this, or is aware of this. I mean, they're sort of aware there's something, but they don't know what it is. And this actually says, I don't think I've actually sent you that graph, so I'll send that to you when we're finished.
So we've got a different slide that Peter, a different download that Peter sent through.
I sent you a blog, basically.
We did only get it at 12:30 a.m. So haven't had a chance to have a look at it yet, but I'll find out what it was that Peter sent to us. I'll put a bit more detail below. Thanks very much for your time today, Peter. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure. Been lovely talking to you. Thank you very much.
And we're going to get Peter to share more information into Brisbane Small Business so that he can help all of you, help all of us grow. Thanks very much for watching today.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.